The year of our Lord 2023 is long gone, and now we find ourselves halfway through January, hyped for what's to come this year. There are so many good games on the horizon, but maybe, just maybe, someone out there is wondering, hey, you know that Onyx dude from the Gaming Resume? I wonder what he thought were his favoriteest, most bestest things in the year 2023. Well, dear viewer, wonder no more. Sorry that it didn't come out sooner. I just had to take time to create a format that I liked while also making sure that it reflects who I am as a person. So, without further ado, I present to you the things I loved the most in 2023, from games to animes to movies. I shall call it
The Yearly Resume. Anime.
I am an anime fan that isn't really into the slice of life genre. I've tried it, it's just not for me. I like my stories to feel like there is a deeper purpose behind what we see. So when I first heard of Frieren, a story that has strong slice of life elements, I was hesitant. The only other series that I've enjoyed in that subgenre was Silver Spoon, which had a strong thematic element pushing that narrative forward, even if it took 2 seasons to really begin to deliver on those themes. Well, consider me a Frieren convert. I adore this series, a story about an elf who is over 1,000 years old and was a core member of the party of heroes that defeated the Demon King decades ago. Frieren Beyond the Journey is a story that has a nice hook, what with the big bad being defeated already, but ironically, that wasn't quite what hooked me. Since Frieren is an elf who has an extended lifespan, she inevitably realizes that she did not appreciate the time she spent with those whom she called friends. And this story element leads Frieren to have moments of deep contemplation. What do you do with your time if decades feel like weeks? When your closest friends don't last because of how you age? These ideas really sparked something within me. Only a few series get me to think about these subjects as often as Frieren did. One particular episode focusing on a dwarf who forgets his long-deceased wife's facial features and voice really struck a chord with me. Frieren isn't afraid to also be a badass though. There is some incredible action scenes and fight choreography to be found in this first half, and my god, the Sakuga in this show is insane! The first season is only halfway done, as I mentioned before, but if the anime continues with this level of excellence on the second half, you might hear me talking about Frieren on next year's video. These kinds of anime stories only come every so often, and just like Frieren realizes that she must truly appreciate what little time she has with her loved ones, so should we appreciate when we get a gem of a show such as this.
この番組はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
Hey you, have you ever looked at your phone and wondered, why the f*** am I paying so much for my wireless bill and for what? I don't know where that voice is coming from, but yeah, I have wondered? Well, then let me tell you that Mint Mobile offers all of these features for as low as $15 per month. This is the point where I tell you I'm partnering with Mint Mobile for this video today. So weird voice from nowhere, please tell me more. Certainly, Mint is built on the nation's largest 5G network and keeps costs low because they sell direct to you online. They cut out the retail stores and salespeople. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to the same network? Go to trymintmobile.com/thegamingresume, also linked in my description, to get premium wireless for $15 a month. Hey, this is me from the future, and I've spent the last 3 weeks using Mint on a free trial, and it has been excellent. I've been able to watch YouTube videos while I walk the dog and play some games, and I couldn't tell a difference in speed or performance, and consider me surprised. This is high quality bandwidth for what I need. And switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to digital eSIM cards, which most phones now have, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your home. The whole process takes only around 15 minutes. If your phone doesn't have eSIM, Mint will ship you a new SIM card for free. Big Wireless wants you to think they're the only option. Don't be duped. Go to trymintmobile.com/thegamerresume, also linked in my description, and stop paying more than you have to for your phone plan. And now, through the end of January, new customers can get any plan for just $15 a month when they purchase 3 months or more. This includes the unlimited plan, which is normally $30 a month. And hey, with the money saved, you can buy yourself that copy of Final Fantasy XVI you've been thinking about, eh? Come on, you know you want to. Well, gee golly, thanks random voice that wants me to save money on my bill. Now, please go away. I'm honestly a bit scared and wonder how this could even be happening, and if life itself is some form of figment of somebody's imagination, or am I in a play like The Truman Show, or... Okay. Thanks once again to Mint for partnering with me on this video. Attack on Titan has come to an end. It has been 10 years running, and I remember watching that first episode a few days after it aired in Japan out of sheer curiosity. I was blind, had heard nothing of the manga but the name, and boy did that first episode leave a strong impression. Attack on Titan isn't a perfect show. During the many years it aired, it had plenty of ups and plenty of downs. During the first half of Season 3, for example, I almost felt like the show was a bit aimless, and watching it weekly certainly didn't help. But boy am I glad I stuck with it. These final chapters of the final season... Why did they choose this friggin' naming scheme? I hate it so much. Like, it could have just been called the fourth season, and then the fifth season, and then the final season, or final season part 1, part 2. At that point, it didn't matter, right? But no, they had to go final season just to blow their load, and everybody was like, whoa, it's a final season! But really, no, we have to wait 3 more years for it. These are some of the best content in the series, with impeccable action and direction. I personally enjoyed the ambiguity of the end and wonder if there will be more AOT in the future. However, if this is the end for good, then I am glad I went on this journey with all of these flawed characters. It was a hell of a ride. And kudos to the show. My wife, who isn't even a big anime fan at all, loved the series, so it just gets extra points for that. There are plenty of anime that can be sold to people in typical ways, whether with cool words or cool trailers. But with Heavenly Delusion, I feel like a lot of the appeal came from not really knowing a damn thing about what was happening. So all I will say is this. If you like stories set within post-apocalyptic settings in conjunction with a narrative that is moved forward by a huge mystery hook, then this is the show for you. It's weird, it's different, but it is excellent. I was pleasantly surprised by just how good the story was, and I hope more people watch it before the, hopefully inevitable, I guess, Season 2 airs, as it was very underrated and hardly discussed while it aired. Please give this one a watch and go in as blind as possible. You won't regret it. This show is like cozy, and it's warm, and it's super cute. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to just chill with Pokemon in a resort? Well, this is the show for you. The main character is enjoyable and a cute oaf. Psyduck continues to be a peak Pokemon, and the world of Concierge just looks amazing with that awesome stop motion animation. I love shows that take something predetermined like Pokemon and give it a major spin. So if you want something that's enjoyable for the whole family or want to watch with your kids if you're a parent, check out Pokemon Concierge, probably the easiest, coziest watch on this list. Have y'all ever heard of Astro Boy? I sure have, but I've never watched it. So going into Pluto, I was a bit worried something would be lost to me since the story is a reinterpretation of one of the arcs within Astro Boy. Again, I want to reiterate, I have no experience with Astro Boy, no clue what the themes are or what kind of storytelling tropes it has. But I was pleasantly surprised by the angle Naoki Urasawa, the author, chose for this retelling. A murder mystery which I find to be incredibly engaging in a world full of robots and war. Gesicht, our point of view character, is a robot detective that gets put on a case of these grisly murders involving Horns and the 7 most advanced robots on the planet. Since this is a mystery, I will steer away from any spoilers, as it is best to experience the twists and turns yourself. But my goodness! Every single episode, each one being an hour long by the way, left me in awe, with the story events always keeping me engaged. The characters are excellent, and Gesicht was an inspired choice as our point of view. There's a lot to discuss when it comes to the ideas of robots and AI and what it means to be alive and what kind of feeling can advanced AI even experience. But if there's one thing that I took away from this excellent story, is that hate really doesn't have any place in our hearts. In any other year, this would have been my favorite anime series, with its incredible direction, shot composition, and outstanding animation. But there is one series that managed to top everything else. This right here. This is the stuff of anime and manga legends. Vinland Saga Season 1 was already an exceptional start to an exceptional story. Written by Giga Chad mangaka Makoto Yukimura, Vinland Saga is a story of Thorfinn, a boy turned man in Season 2, who was seeking revenge for his father's killer. A revenge that... Wait a second. Have you seen Season 1 of Vinland Saga? You haven't? What are you doing? Go watch it. Like, it's incredible stuff. Just watch it. Just watch it, dude. Just watch it. You can come back. No, actually, no. There's like barely any spoilers, but there are going to be spoilers. I don't know, whatever. Do you? It's your life, your choice. Just watch it. Just watch Village. Yeah. Back to what I was saying. A revenge he never got. Season 2 starts sometime after the events of Season 1. Thorfinn, now a slave, is introduced to Einar, a newly enslaved man who is bound to become Thorfinn's best bud. I absolutely loved what Einar brought to the mix, a second point of view for Thorfinn to acknowledge the type of people he affected by his past deeds. The slave arc, which is adapted in its entirety, is what raised Vinland Saga from a great manga to a masterpiece for me when I first read it a few years ago. The themes that Yukimura portrays here are so deep and very philosophical, and they are hardly ever tackled by anime or manga, where so much of the focus is on the different ways our main characters can look as cool as possible while doing all the fighting or killing or what have you. Yukimura is an avid hater of violence and war, and even if the second season is slower to some, I couldn't help but be gripped by the incredible characterization and character development that Thorfinn has, the type of development that can only come from a story with a genuine human message. I'm sure you've heard this before, but Vinland Saga is not the anime to miss. This is a story that happens once every decade or two. This is a type of story that reminds me of why I love the medium of anime and why I think I'll always continue to be a fan.
Movies.
Have you ever wanted to watch a highly skilled, highly proficient assassin mess up on the job while also showing the audience that he may not be that good at his job? Well, look no further than David Fincher's The Killer, a film about what I just described. I am a David Fincher stan. I love almost all of his films, and Seven is one of my favorite movies of all time. So I went into The Killer with high expectations, and they were easily met. There also seems to be a meta-narrative aspect of the movie, as I've seen people mention that the assassin's mistakes reflect how Fincher sees himself, though I don't know how true those claims are. Either way, you've got yourself a movie with incredible direction, fantastic tension, and witty dialogue with an interesting premise, which makes this an easy recommendation. My wife hates movies that don't give you all the answers, but me, this guy right here, I love him. Keep me thinking about the movie long after the credits rolled. Minari is a movie about a Korean family that immigrates to the US to start a new life. It's a vision of the American dream that we can all relate to, well, at least those of us that aren't Nepo babies or that come from rich parents. It's a story about the struggles of starting over in a foreign land where the people are odd and the kids are mean. Minari touches on many subjects, but the one aspect of the film that genuinely moved me was the character of Grandma Sunja, who elevated every single scene she was in. Hilarious at times and heartbreaking at others, this is a movie that you really can't miss, and if you decide to check it out, once the credits roll, look into what the titular Minari flower is, and notice how the story is elevated into levels of beauty that many films strive to reach, but never can. Watch this movie if you somehow haven't yet. What happens when two strangers who are having the absolute worst day of their lives and are at their respective breaking points run into each other, setting off a chain of events that neither of them could ever see coming? While not a movie but a TV show, Beef is the first A24 produced TV series, starring Steven Yeun and Ali Wong. A story of two people who are broken, desperate, and want nothing more than to succeed at their lives in very different ways. This is a genuinely funny show, with some of the darkest humor I've seen yet. But underneath that humor lies a deep look into the psyche of people and what that psyche can do when we're pushed to our limits and an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Seeing how each of the main characters try to outdo one another while trying to get some sort of revenge was the highlight of all the TV shows I watched this year. And with only 8 episodes to watch, this is a very easy show to get through, so please check this one out.
Games.
Before we get into the games section, I do want to take some time out and just make everybody aware or remind everyone that this year there have been an insane amount of layoffs in the industry, and I want better for our devs. The games that they put together were some of the best we've ever had this year, and it's not right. So before we get into them, just think about your devs. Think about what's happening, and if there is any way to do, I don't know what we could possibly do, but God, we really need to change in this industry. We really do. Metroid Prime Remastered is the perfect, one-to-one remaster of a game. Everything that made the original game excellent is intact, like the perfect version of the standard Metroid gameplay in first person, a miracle of game design, while keeping the few quality of life upgrades the trilogy received on Wii, but adding an incredible new coat of paint. The textures look absolutely gorgeous, with some lighting work that made me do many double takes. Metroid has never looked this good, and it makes me excited for how incredible, or at least how potentially incredible, Metroid Prime 4 could look and be. Hopefully, the Nintendo gods make it a Switch 2 launch title. Oh boy. Resident Evil 4 Remake, on the other hand, is a type of remake that I love, one that takes the original, respects its place in gaming history, and decides to reinvent itself in a way that is different enough to be considered an entirely separate experience from the first. If you played the original Resident Evil 4, then this game and its excellence will come as no surprise. It's a love letter to Resident Evil 4 as well as an innovation for third-person horror action games. That parry system? This game was so good, it made me want the next new Resident Evil game that isn't a remake to also be in third person using this parry system. One can only hope. One more can I add to the conversation that hasn't already been said about this game. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is excellent. It uses the recycled Hyrule map in great ways, and that ending, it got me. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that the ending of Tears of the Kingdom is the best in the entire series, and I'm a Majora's Mask stan. I love that game. I was very happy that the game decided to have a more engaging story, even if it didn't present it in a linear fashion. God, please get rid of finding flashbacks in the world. That is just not good. I haven't been this excited for the future of the series in a long time, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Zelda team do next. I have never really played a Star Ocean game before, but this remake of the second title in the series is a great place to start. The story, while a little bit slow at first, is genuinely interesting and kept me hooked almost the entire way, but the combat and multiple systems in and out of combat are what kept me glued. There are so many ways to customize your experience that essentially break this game. For example, in the game, you can get different abilities to help you scout for enemies to raise the encounter rate while also reducing your stats to then increase the EXP you make. Then there's another ability called Bodyguard that makes your party attack enemies while walking around the different environments. And if they're weak enough, you just kill them and get the full XP without even entering combat. I couldn't believe that I could just keep walking around the map and get experience so easily. And you'd think the combat wasn't enjoyable or something, but my goodness, it totally is. This action combat is excellent, and I can't recommend this game enough. I would have finished it, but I did get distracted quite heavily by a game that not only didn't come out in 2023, but also a game that I had zero interest in playing, and boy am I glad I gave it a shot. I am in utter shock that I enjoyed Cyberpunk 2077 as much as I did. For some context, I've played all 3 Witcher games, though I never beat the first game, but I did thoroughly enjoy my time with Witcher 2. Witcher 3, on the other hand, I always felt it was a bit, I don't want to say overrated, but yeah, a little bit kinda. Not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but it didn't really leave a lasting impact on me. So when Cyberpunk launched in the awful state it was in, I thought to myself, well, I guess this is when I stopped paying attention to CDPR. However, the great YouTube channel Downward Thrust made a video on Starfield, and in it, he described a bunch of scenarios and systems within Cyberpunk to highlight just how disappointing Starfield was in his opinion. Somehow, that made me feel more compelled to check out Cyberpunk. And by golly, I loved it. I was fully hooked by the story, the many choices you can make once you finish the prologue, and the absolute gorgeous atmosphere that is Night City, which feels like a character on its own. Combat is super fun, with some gunplay that feels like it was designed by expert first-person shooter devs. Now, normally, a lot of these titles that have as many systems as Cyberpunk incentivize stealthy approaches, but I was compelled to be a katana-wielding badass, which I secretly always wanted to be. I had so much fun slashing up enemies as if this were a character action game in the vein of DMC or Bayonetta. I also love the character interactions and side quests that you can unlock. There is such an attention to detail, and that really gives this game a unique human feeling element that not many AAA games can nail. I felt involved. I genuinely cared about these characters to the point where I felt something for my main romance, Judy Alvarez. My goodness, do I love you today and forever, don't ever leave me. Keanu Reeves also killed it as Johnny Silverhand, and I was surprised to see how involved he was in the story. So if you haven't played this game yet, give it a shot. You might find yourself enjoying the life of a Night City nomad. Now it's time for the annual Final Fantasy segment of the Yearly Resume, where I go over everything I loved about Final Fantasy this past year. What do we have this time? Take it away! Final Fantasy XIV. I remember hearing stories about your disastrous launch over 10 years ago when my coworkers would talk about how awful their time was, but how pretty you looked. And look at us now. I finally took the plunge in January of 2023, exactly a year ago, and I started my Eorzean adventures thanks to a long-time supporter of the channel, Crystal, who gifted me a copy of the game and its expansions. I appreciate the gift and I'll never forget it, because I am in love with Final Fantasy XIV. A Realm Reborn, the base game, isn't perfect, but I could always see and notice that there was something alluring about the world and the story that was being set up. By the time I got to the end of ARR, I was honestly hooked. And Heavensward? Forget about it, dude. That expansion cemented my decision. I was in for the long run. There is honestly so much to say about this massive game, like how much I enjoyed the story, especially Shadowbringers, by the way, as freaking peak Final Fantasy, how engaging the combat and mechanics are, and how awesome the community is. But I think I'm gonna save all that for a dedicated video on Final Fantasy XIV. I still have to make my way through Endwalker so I can be ready for this year's Dawntrail expansion, which looks amazing so far, so I fully expect to talk more about my experience with 14 before summer. But if you love Final Fantasy and you have even the smallest interest in trying out this MMO, have you heard that the critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV now has an expanded free trial which you can play through the entirety of A Realm Reborn and the award-winning Heavensward expansion, and also award-winning Stormblood expansion up to level 70 for free with no restrictions on playtime? You haven't? Well, time to jump in. Guys, Final Fantasy XVI has come and gone. The years of waiting from reveal to release felt like an eternity, with each new glimpse of the game promising a vision from Creative Business Unit 3 that I couldn't wait to play. And it honestly was worth the wait. Final Fantasy XVI is a game with an almost uncompromising vision. A game where our main character, Clive, fights for a world without slavery. A world where people can just live. Speaking of Clive, I actually really liked his character. He's kind of cheesy and also really cool and also says the F-bomb, and it's funny to me. Fuck. But the best part of Clive is the performance from Ben Starr, a national treasure of a man. He embodied Clive and gave us one of the best voice acting performances in all of gaming, and I mean that. There are moments of blood-curdling anger, despair and sadness, and he was able to convey almost every emotion in the book. Almost all of the voice actors are excellent, I might add, and I don't think it's controversial to say that this is the best voice-acted Final Fantasy game yet. The combat is excellent, with ex-Capcom dev Ryota Suzuki crafting what he considered his best combat system to date. However, not everything is perfect. 16 suffers from what I call MMO quest design syndrome, where after one of the most epic fights in the history of gaming, you get one of the dullest quests yet, and usually it's what you do in the quest that is the issue. The writing is pretty great most of the time, but had the team cut back on the number of quests in between the big set pieces and made a meaty 25 to 30 hour story, I think the game would have genuinely benefited immensely from that shorter runtime. However, despite these imperfections, this game is my personal game of the year. No other title this year made me feel what I did with 16, from happy moments to heartbreaking ones, with a powerful ending that will remain in my mind and heart like the best in the series. Final Fantasy XVI presented an idea of accepting the truth and how doing so can unlock an individual's full potential. And this idea and concept got me thinking about this controversy around Final Fantasy XVI and the Final Fantasy fandom as a whole, and how we as fans digest and discuss video games. Final Fantasy XVI was the first game in a long time that made me question how I view game reviews and critique. Just for some context, I have discussed games previously and critiqued them because I wanted something else out of those titles, instead of seeing what a game is trying to do first and foremost. 16 achieves its goals 90% of the time, and instead of wishing this game was like your favorite Final Fantasy, maybe it's best if we fans accept the truth and realize that Final Fantasy as a series is ever evolving, and the creators can truly choose to make whatever title they want. Once we accept that vision, then we can properly begin to discuss a game and its fault or its successes. But yeah, I love the game. I wish it were a bit more difficult on the normal difficulty, or that Final Fantasy mode would be available from the start, but the first DLC with Omega was incredible and was actually challenging, and I can't wait for the next one. Oh, and Torgal is absolutely amazing, and I love him, and oh my god, Sid is so cool, and Jill, I love Jill, and Dion, oh my god, Dion, coolest Dragoon ever. And that's it for the Final Fantasy segment this time. See you next year. And that's the video, folks. Thanks for getting all the way to the end. If you really liked the content, please let me know. If you want to check out the media that I shared my love for this year, also check that out. It's it's worth your time, right? But really, thank you so much for being here. This is the first major video production that I'm putting together on my own on this channel, and I really wanted to succeed. Also, thanks for the partnership with Mint Mobile. You guys are awesome. Thanks for that. But yeah, if you guys want to see more of this, I will need all the support possible, and that means, you know, you guys supporting me by subscribing, liking, commenting, all that YouTube stuff, as well as potentially crowdfunding. That's something that I will consider for this year, because I think that I want to continue delivering this regardless of how YouTube thinks it will do. So if you want to join the list of these beautiful people that are being scrolling past the screen right now, consider becoming a supporter. I really would appreciate it. But anyway, thanks for watching my favorite things of this year. I hope to see you next year. Bye, yo.